All right, we are live for educational purposes only, not financial advice. Let's take a look here and see what we've got going on today. With the market, CPI coming good this morning, cooler than expected. So inflation fears have dropped, and that print come out at 7:30 my time this morning, Central Time. And the market's liked it, sitting on R1 right now. On the weekly, the monthly overnight, actually yesterday right into the close, and then right on the new open, it got down in this level and held all evening. And of course, now we're sitting 500 points higher. That's why we pay attention to S1 on the monthly. If you could scoop some of that up last night and at least enjoy the ride into the print. I'm not a big fan of riding through a print because that candle could have been the other way, just depending on the data. And we do not know the data personally, or I don't, before it comes out. There's a lot of guesses out there of what it'll be, but I've learned not to live with that, just to get out of my trade and see what this produces. This candle, which was huge, of course. If I'd have stayed long, there's another, 300 points. That was pretty easy, but that's okay. That's not how that works. Or doesn't work for me that way. We are on the daily R1 as well. So a good little pop and back test of two major levels for the weekly and daily. So I like the way that's lining up for a potential continuation into once we open. And they'll digest it a little bit at the open, of course, but that is just a great level here to remember. They're always support until proven otherwise. And right now, this is just support and trying to move higher. Yesterday in the room, in the Discord, we talked a lot about SMH. And we knew that once this happened yesterday, that we needed something else positive to happen before the market would really get turned up. Well, we tagged the S1 on the NQ, but now we are back above S1 here on print news. So it's always amazing to me that the market has a way of conquering major levels and zones, and it just happens to line up with newsprints or other things. It's just amazing how that works to me. And maybe it's just pure coincidence, but it seems to really drive what happens. So for today, it's bull bear line on the Q is right here, 765. We hold 765. First target 30,038. That's 30,038. For anybody, I see Phil's in here. Hey Phil, I hope you're back on the farm. Your back's not killing you. Phil's a little older than I am. I won't say he's older, and he does things like he's my age. So he every once in a while it slows him down for a minute. Nvidia held the pivot, has been holding the pivot, had a decent pullback yesterday, but you can see with the pre-market pop, everything is enjoying that aspect. S&P really didn't do a lot, and the Dow is actually red. The Dow is sitting below its weekly pivot and barely clinging to life on its monthly pivot. So that is something to take a note of. Maybe they rotate, which they already have rotated a little bit, of course, because the Q is up so much this morning. Well, I say so much, 300 points, but that's only 1% on the Q. But the Dow is not liking what it has this morning. I love this here. Last night into the close, and then overnight, this was the play to buy this. And I was actually, a subscriber sent me a note on Substack, when it hit, he sent me, hey, that just tagged. I said, yeah. And he said, look at the push. And that was this candle here. And it went to like, yeah, 550 area. Then it come right back down and tested it again. So that just gives us a very, we know, let me just go into this monthly. This just gives you a lot of understanding of a few things, just how accurate this level is, or the levels are, but also where that bottom is that you do not want to see break. For the Q, you know, we had this run under it, but then immediately reclaimed it. And once that happens, like I said, support till proven otherwise. And this was a news candle. I don't remember what it was. Somebody will remember that can refresh my memory. But as a trader, you tend to have a short-term memory because it's just on to the next level. And as soon as this held as support, it's time to go long again, and it ran to 30.80. The funny thing about the 30.80, not trying to flip-flop you too much, is that's kind of right up here near this weekly R2. So that'll be an interesting spot to see how we digest when we get up there, because you can see when I just draw a straight line across that area that this month, twice that's been the top. Now to me, and this is Dave talking, nobody else, we've got our fantastic level that we played this off of. This looks, and I talked about this yesterday, like an inverse head and shoulders. You got a shoulder over here, you've got a head, and then we come down, and charts love to be symmetrical in a sense. So we put in this other shoulder right here. And if this neckline breaks, that 30.80 area, start looking at 30.505, because it's probably going to go after it. Okay, so this will be your next big. We get over that weekly R2. Now let's be very aware. For the week, R2 is the top about 90% of the time. We close below that level. So if we get there, there's no reason for me to be real aggressive to the upside. Not to say that it doesn't continue to run, rip, tear, very possible. But I know that for the range, we're pretty exhausted for the week because we just know the statistics. But this goes up and tests here and either rolls over and dies, or it continues on. We'll make that decision at 35.05. If this 29,300 breaks, you know that that's a major loss of support. And we would want to be on the opposite side of that trade. So big picture. Okay, this isn't my intraday that I'm trying to scalp or do whatever with. This is my big picture, that inverse head and shoulders, which is a quote unquote bullish, and I want to make sure my finger's in there, bullish pattern. Because I remember on the bull runs, it would put in a head and shoulders. So if this was flipped upside down, it would put in a head and shoulders, which is a bearish pattern. And then it would just use that to fake out and then rip higher. So we never know, but this is definitely a bullish pattern that it has put on right here. Once it clears the neckline, you can do the measurement from the neckline to this top and get the extension of what it's supposed to do. What we know it should do was hold support until proven otherwise, and it did. And now we look for next target. On the monthly is 35.05. On this weekly, about 30,000, just call it 50, because that is in the middle. Hold on, my wife is asking me if everybody made it to their football and stuff this morning. Yes, they did. Let me see. So that's kind of how I'm viewing this, big time. That's what I'm going to be watching. That's what I care about. SMH on the, and why isn't this? This is why that's not. I'm sorry. Pardon my ignorance. I had that on a day. Let's go back and look at the NQ really quick. On the weekly here, 623.15 is going to be a major spot for SMH. Let's go back and look at this weekend. Okay, so 29.9 is going to be the spot, and we can see we died there this morning. 950, 29.950. That is your weekly pivot. If we can get on top of that weekly pivot, we definitely look higher to 30.707. So when we go back 29, so basically 30,000 here, if we can get on top of that and hold as support, all it's going to do is break above this neckline and then sit there on support, and then you start looking higher at those targets. We have to clear 29,952, which is only 200 points, but it has to get some momentum there. But that, all that would do is put us on top of that area and let it break out from there. It'll probably use this pivot for support and then continue higher. And then we know the monthly pivot's going to be a major level. This was the biggest decision that we had to make, and this was at the close and right after the open last night. And it just held and held and held. What I've noticed is the market's gotten really good at making the bigger moves overnight. And I think that's to keep people that are trading prop firms, because from what I understand, if you're trading a prop firm, I don't know a lot about them, but I do have a subscriber that does mess with them. You cannot trade them overnight. So that really eliminates a lot of that being part of being profitable. Is because if you think about it, from what I understand, the prop firm will only let you lose so much money, but you can make, if you're profitable, you can make whatever. Well, the market seems to be really trending to keep people out of those moves. So we get down here and we hold overnight, and now we are 500 points right at it, 450 points higher than that level. So keep that in mind. The ES is sitting right on its monthly pivot, which just consolidation all the way across there. So that thing is just consolidated tight for a move. And right now we have to look towards 77.90 on the monthly, because that is the next target. And currently that's about 200 points higher, which to me isn't a lot on the S&P if it wants to go get it. And the same for the NQ. It can go get these bigger targets and make them like it. We are bumping into this weekly pivot. So the NQ and the S&P have a very similar look on the week, that right now they're using that pivot, the weekly pivot, as overhead resistance. And we know it's resistance until proven otherwise. So we are sitting on good support on both, and they will tie together, because if the NQ is going to move higher, so is the S&P. The NQ is sitting on good support with the daily level just hanging out, and we will look for that continuation higher, because at this point we've already had the big play off of S1 for that. The ES just did not quite get there on the weekly. It just kind of stuck. So continued consolidation for a move, because that's been consolidating all month long on this pivot right here. I'm trying to highlight it, but it's just sitting here chopping across. I mean, we've had a few little moves away, but nothing drastic. Major consolidation. Okay, major consolidation, because we're almost halfway through the month, and it's just sitting there trying and thinking about going one direction or the other. And right now that 75.43 is support until proven otherwise for your bigger picture. The VIX, we watched the VIX yesterday, and I even put a note out when we got there that said, hey, we talked about this pre-market, and this is why. 1711 on the monthly pivot is a big deal. And the reason it's a big deal, it's been resistant several times. The only time the VIX actually broke out was got a huge, that was on that news candle that I was talking about on NQ. I don't remember what that was, and I just can't recall, but VIX breaks out and immediately fails, retest from the bottom and dies. Same thing here. Yesterday when we got here, I put a note out that said, hey, for this market to get any traction, we cannot get above this level. We peak above it, and now we have come right back inside of it. So keep an eye on the VIX to make sure that, and I'll be keeping an eye on it, but if it gets over 1711, all bets are off, and you have to know that the risk tolerance is going down. Right now, we're trading below that at 1678. We'll see how it plays today, see if there's much fear that comes in. They love the cooler print on inflation. I think even core was down today. The core inflation, they measure it kind of a couple different ways, but with the core being down, that gives them the opportunity to be very excited for interest rate cuts. And the market just loves that idea. If they even think they can get an interest rate cut, the market loves it. So that's why you get this massive, oh my goodness, the world is great. Core inflation is coming down and regular inflation, and they measure it so silly. If you look at it, like you can't even, like I said, that's why you can't predict it. You just let it be, because they take out, I don't know, they take out everything that matters and say, well, inflation's good. They take out everything that most common people live and use and exclude it, and they do all kinds of wizardry there with inflation prints. So just keep that in mind. Surprised the Dow looks a little beat up. Let's look at the Russell. And the only reason we're looking at these is just to get an overall health picture of the market this morning. Russell had a massive pop on the news, just like everything else, but we will see if it's continuation or if it kind of gives up and what it wants to do for this here. I like to keep an eye on this NQ daily level because I want to know 765 if it's going to continue to hold into the open. First target 30.38, and then the overshoot is at 30,300. What matters right now is 765. If that holds, you have to look higher, and that's just on our daily stuff to see how we do. The one reason I love trading the monthly levels and the weekly levels is this reason here. You can collect major points on one trade, and you do not have to sit and babysit it and scalp it and do, which I love a good scalp trade because usually they're 5-10 minutes at the most, and you're good shape. Last night, the easiest thing to do was buy this level and then just let it work and know that if we break below it, we're wrong, so we get out. But this was just an easy trade to manage and to watch. Beat on SMH. I keep pounding about SMH, but it's going to have to be the one to lead. And boy, it's that 612 area has been tough. And on the week and the month, we don't have anything there. We go flip over to the day, and we'll have those pivots as soon as this opens in about 12 minutes to see where we are located. But it's going to be 612. We're trading 608 now. So we will see what the pivots broadcast and show us those levels once they open. I am just really optimistic with the fact that the S&P is sitting on that monthly pivot and just doing this. When you have a full month of consolidation here so far, that's going to make a move one way or the other. And this is like just a tightening effect. And eventually it will let go and either run higher or lower. But right now, 75.43 on the S&P is what matters. That level has been support and a little bit of resistance, but really it's only been support because every time it gets below it, it gets right back on top. And you can see we've wicked it, we've held it. It's just the area that matters. A wick there, and I remember there was a big wick on the NASDAQ here as well. But that's what will matter to see, because if the S&P is going to break out, the NQ will have to lead that higher, which SMH will have to lead the NQ. So we kind of have that domino effect, and NVIDIA will have to lead SMH probably. That's what we will be watching into the open. I'm just going to be keeping an eye on the NQ daily to see if we hold that daily level just for a day trade, because like I said, the big points were caught overnight. See if we can hold this, and we're flirting with, you know, we're trading right on it right now. We're 6 points above it, but that will be a very big determining factor on the trades today that are made. So with that, I'm going to go to my Discord room and stream from there for a little while and just talk, see what's going on, see how it plays, and we will monitor everything, just keeping and when I say monitor everything, I'm just keeping it out of my peripheral vision over here, paying attention to the VIX, paying attention to NVIDIA, SMH, because they will be telltale signs of if we are going higher in a good way, or if we are just kind of faking out, pushing up in here, and then going to make a decision. So as long as that stuff holds and the ES holds that center pivot, there's no reason to believe otherwise at this point. So with that, I will leave you, Substack, and we will talk soon.